Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, read a little Krishna book, and I want to churn this question that's been it's been bubbling and boiling and demanding attention. This question of why. In other words, what's in it for Krishna to create a situation where parts and parcels are vulnerable and turn away from him? The simple answer is, this is the one you always hear, it's a simple answer. We're just like Krishna, and we have free will, and end of story. You can turn away from Krishna, you can, okay, great. But there's more to it. I know there's more to it. And I like to go deep. So I'm looking at this and trying to expand it out. You know, the devil's in the details. So I was looking at something else this morning about how this works. Like I say, it's important because it's not just like an interesting phenomena to look at. No, I'm the particle that has this. So I want to know. Come on. It's part of my self-realization. Oh, you're a servant of Krishna. Okay, great. Yeah, that's the simple answer. Right. Okay. It's true. But there's more to it than that. The how, the why, the wherefore, the when. You know, there's a lot going on. Hare Krishna. Well, everything's Krishna. Okay, that's the simple answer. But there's a lot to Krishna. And that's where it gets interesting. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So a couple more rounds, and then I want to look at something else about why. That maybe, like with children, when they start to grow up a little bit, they learn how to talk. First thing they say is no, and then they start to say, why? Why? First they say no, and then they say, why? Well, everything's why. They want to know about everything. Why? So, maybe it's kind of like that. We're over the no stage. Now it's the why. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama. It's interesting, the Bhagavatam, at least the first part of the Bhagavatam, first few cantos, deals with how the creation is, how everything's done. Oh, Krishna created everything, okay, fine. But the Bhagavatam, in the first few cantos, goes into quite a bit of detail into how, who and how. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. But I want to know why. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare. I think it's not so readily available because it's very, it has a lot to do with the internal energy. It's very deep into the workings of the internal energy. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. If somebody can actually accept what the Bhagavatam's saying in the how part, how the energies work, what the energies are, and how they work for the creation of the material world, if they can get past that and accept it, that might be something to qualify for getting into the why part, which is deeply personal. Deeply personal. Deeply personal. Which deals with emotional and loving energies of the Lord. So, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Like the Bhagavad Gita deals with who Krishna is. Yeah, he's the cause of all causes. But then it goes into detail. Gita goes into detail about his energies, about how he's controlling everything. And the different processes for realizing his position. And the importance of surrendering. Why it's important to accept a subordinate position to Krishna and engage in service. So the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu help with the why. The why of it all. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna Krishna. There's tons of Vedic scriptures that Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada could have translated. Tons of them. But he chose basically these three, basically, with other also supportive ones, Upadeshamrita, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. They support everything. But the three basic scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I've heard them described as Bhagavad Gita introduction, like you were taking a college course. That would be like undergraduate study. And then Bhagavatam, you get into graduate work. And then Chaitanya Charitamrita is going for a PhD. Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, doctoral work. Hare Krishna, Hare postgraduate work. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna. Be more like private study rather than an auditorium filled with Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Like Bhagavad Gita is very suitable for a large gathering. Very suitable. Anyone can come, Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavatam mostly is private study in small groups or in the temple. But you don't see that so much with Chaitanya Charitamrita. That's a lot of times one-on-one or small groups, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is so, looking at these things and seeing what the Lord will reveal about himself. There really isn't anything else that I'd rather do. Hare Krishna, Hare. And fortunately, I'm in a situation where there is some time and detachment from social demands and even economic demands, then I can do it. They're all minimized. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. There's a guest here staying in the backyard, and thankfully they're somewhat like this also, where they just I don't even see them. They're in the trailer or they're chanting japa or something, and they're not like needing all kinds of interaction. It's like Haribol, Haribol, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, which means the mind is not all cluttered with conversations about this or that or the other thing. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Srila Prabhupada. So this question, why? Now, I don't know if this is right or not, but this is what I'm coming up with, is that, and I just read it recently in a purport, in the second canto, chapter 9 or 10, in one of Prabhupada's purports, that there's the there's Krishna, there's the internal potency, there's the external energy, and there's the marginal energy. So of his energies, there's the internal potency, there's the external energy, and there's the marginal entities. So when he expands his energy, when he expands his Vishnu forms, that's something else. They're all non-different from Krishna. They're all Purusha. They're all enjoyers, controllers, like that. The Purusha incarnations. But these are the internal energy, the Shakti energy expansions, which, like the internal potency, is his pleasure potency, the topmost personality of his internal potency is Srimati Radharani. And then there's other moods within that internal potency and other personalities. And within that internal potency, there are minute living entities. Some of them are never influenced by anything other than devotion to Krishna. They have no other desire. Their attention doesn't go anywhere else. And they're very tiny, they're minute, jiva souls. But they're eternally liberated. And they're always engaged in serving Krishna, no problem. Then there's another class of these small living entities, these jivas, that are marginal, which means they have a tendency to want to enjoy like Krishna. See, the other ones, they don't want to enjoy like Krishna. It's not of interest to them. They have no interest in enjoying like Krishna. Their only interest is in serving Krishna. They're fine with that. Fully satisfied, fully blissful. They don't want to enjoy separately. Now, I was looking at that, like, why are these two classes? Why do some are eternally liberated, and then others, like me, and everybody else I'm looking at around here, has this desire to be like Krishna? So I was looking at it in terms of mother and father. When people unite in this world, and these material bodies conjugate, the offspring has the characteristics of both parents. And sometimes they favor the father, and sometimes they favor the mother, the traits. So in this case, if just looking, trying to understand this, if Krishna is the father and Radha is the mother, or the internal potency, and the internal potency, her service, she's expanded for service, is to satisfy Krishna, to please Krishna. She's the devotional energy. Krishna expands into this. She's Krishna's internal energy for pastimes, for pleasure. So within that internal potency, she's from Krishna. So Krishna, they're together. We look at it in terms of like father, mother. Anyway, I'm just trying to look at and understand. Sometimes the offspring will favor the father, although it has all the characteristics of the mother, and sometimes will favor the mother and has some of the characteristics of the father. So for these jivas that never deviate, they fully favor their mother. They're fully inclined to devotion. They never want to enjoy and be like the father. They're always very happy, and their characteristics are strong, favoring the mother, devotion. But the other ones, the marginal ones, they tend to want to be like the father and enjoy. Although they are from the internal energy. They are expanded. Everything's expanded from Krishna, but not directly, because it's internal potency. So there's Krishna, there's the internal energy, and then part of that internal energy are these little living entities, and some of them, although their eternal position is devotional, because they're expanded from Krishna and their energy, they're not Vishnu Tattva, they're not Purusha, they're not independent enjoyers, but they kind of favor the father a little bit, just enough to make things complicated. And I was looking at that. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. So, the devotional energy, I'm going to say Radha. It's probably expanded somehow to deal with this, but just for simplicity, I'm going to say Radha. Her sole function is to please Krishna. So how to get these living entities that have this strong favor of wanting to be a Purusha, how to get them situated nicely so that they can get into the devotional. They can take advantage of their devotional heritage rather than their competitive wanting to be a Purusha disturbance. So if this is coming from Radha, from the internal energy, the question why still isn't answered. Why? This is kind of like a how, maybe a how. But the why is still not there. Because everything is for Krishna's pleasure. So, somehow Krishna, this situation has been created to please Krishna, that there are some living entities who are in this marginal position. But they're coming from Radha. They're coming from they are internal energy. So now, the question is not, why did Krishna create this situation? He's off the hook. The question now is, why does Radha create this situation? I hope, I'm not digging a grave asking these kinds of questions, but Krishna, it doesn't shake my faith, and I'm not going to stop chanting Hare Krishna. I just want to go deeper. I want to know, why does Radha create this? In other words, for Krishna's pleasure, she expands as all the gopis, with all their individual personalities, and even one that's competitive. What's her name? She's a competitive gopi. Radha creates one of the cowherd, expands as one of the cowherd girls that's her competitor and is always challenging her, trying to outdo her. That kind of gets the pastimes going even more for Krishna. So, what the heck is her name? Chandravali. Chandravali. Radha expands as Lalita, supportive friend, and she expands as Vishaka, another supportive friend. And she also expands as Chandravali, an aggressive competitor, with a whole other crowd and group of friends that are all trying to outdo Radharani to get Krishna's attention. Chandravali's thing is, she does whatever Radharani does, she does it bigger and better. Her thing is bigger and better, louder, more. Chandravali. Try to get Krishna's attention, crowd Radharani out. So this is Radha's expansions like that. And then when Krishna has his Dwarka Leela, and he assumes his duties in Dwarka, more of a Vishnu type situation for cleaning up the mess in the material world with all the demonic kings making everyone's life miserable, unnecessarily. Fighting and using things. And, she then expands as all the queens. She's expanded as Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, to accompany Narayan. These are all expansions of Radharani. And so, you say, oh, we're an expansion of Krishna. Well, yeah, but not directly. What I'm saying is we're expanded from Radharani. Anyway, I'm looking at this and whoo, Krishna. When you look at Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's incarnation, he's what? He's Radha and Krishna in one form. He's Radha and Krishna. He's Krishna, but he's in the mood of Radha. He's favoring the devotional, his devotional aspect. Why? Well, there's a few reasons. Topmost is, he wants to experience what she's experiencing when she's feeling separation. The only way he can do that is if he takes her position. And he also wants to demonstrate what a devotee is like. But he's the combined form of Radha and Krishna, favoring the devotional, not the Purusha part, not the Krishna part, favoring the devotee part. Krishna. Well, this is what happens when you have a lot of time on your hands. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Krishna. So, I've never felt much of a connection with Radharani, and devotees in general don't talk very much about her. It's kind of like you're Sahajya if you do. But it's at that point where I can't go any further anywhere until I understand my connection with Radha. I can't go anywhere more. I know I'm not like a Purusha. I finally figured that out. So I can't go any further without Radha. Understanding the relationship. I'm actually expanding. I am, as a soul, part of the internal energy. I'm marginal, which means it's possible for me to become confused by the traits I've inherited from my father, the Purusha. But I'm not Purusha. So that's helping a little bit. Oh God. Oh Krishna. How about da 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 da. Find out a little bit more about mother and father. Krishna. Jaya Radhe. Jaya Radhe. Jaya Radhe. Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Chapter 83. Sacrificial Ceremonies performed by Vasudeva. So they're all still at Kurukshetra with this very rare solar eclipse taking place. And they've come from everywhere. Higher planets. They've come from Vaikuntha. They've come from Vrindavan. They've come from Dwarka. All the sages and saints are there. And we've been hearing about their different interactions. The previous chapter was Draupadi, the queen of the Pandavas, inquiring from Krishna's queens about how they met Krishna and how they became Krishna's wives. So everybody's meeting and talking and having a jolly good time. And this is the next chapter. Among the women present at Kurukshetra, glasses. There you go. Hare Krishna. Among the women present at Kurukshetra during the solar eclipse were Kunti, Gandhari, Draupadi, Subhadra, and the queens of many other kings, as well as the gopis from Vrindavan. Wow, what a mix, huh? Wow. When the different queens of Lord Krishna were submitting their statements as to how they were married and accepted by Lord Krishna as his wives, all the female members of the Kuru dynasty were struck with wonder. They were filled with admiration at how all the queens of Krishna were attached to him with love and affection. When they heard about the queen's intensity of love and affection for Krishna, they could not check their eyes from filling up with tears. While the women were engaged in conversations among themselves, and the men were similarly engaged in conversation, there arrived almost all the important sages and ascetics from all directions who had come for the purpose of seeing Lord Krishna and Balaram. Chief among the sages were Krishna Dvaipayan Vyas, the great sage Narada, Shravana, Devala, Asita, Vishwamrita, Sadananda, Bharadvaj, Gautama, and Lord Parashuram, along with all his disciples. Vasishta, Galava, Brihu, Pulastya, Kasyapa, Atri, Markandeya, Brihaspati, Dvita, Trita, Ekata, the four Kumara sons of Brahma, Shanaka, Sanandana, Sanatana, Sanatkumar, Angira, and Agastya, Yagnavalkya, and Vamadev. Now this is Kurukshetra just before the battle. They don't know there's going to be a battle, but this is a sacred place. Kurukshetra is a sacred place. So the battle of Kurukshetra was not an ordinary battle. It took place in a place where all these great personalities had assembled when Krishna was there, Balaram was there. A sanctified, holy place. So that makes even more sense how the different soldiers and military that were killed there later on at the battle all attained liberation. It was a holy place. As soon as the sages and ascetics arrived, all the kings, including Maharaj Yudhisthira and the Pandavas, and Lord Krishna and Balaram, immediately got up from their seats and offered their respects by bowing down to the universally respected sages. After this, sages were properly welcomed by being offered seats and water for washing feet, palatable fruits, garlands of flowers, incense, and sandalwood pulp were presented, and all the kings, led by Krishna and Balaram, worshipped the sages according to the Vedic rules and regulations. When all the sages were comfortably seated, Lord Krishna, who descended for the protection of religion, began to address them on behalf of all the kings. When Krishna began to speak, all became silent, being eager to hear and understand his welcoming words to the sages. Lord Krishna spoke thus: All glories to the assembled sages and ascetics. Today, we are feeling that our lives have become successful. Today, we have achieved the desired goal of life because we are now seeing face to face all the exalted, liberated sages and ascetics whom even great demigods in heaven desire to see. Persons who are neophytes in devotional service and who simply offer their respectful obeisances to the deity in the temple, but cannot realize that the Lord is situated in everyone's heart. And those who simply worship different demigods for fulfillment of their own lusty desires are unable to understand the importance of these sages. They cannot take advantage of receiving these sages by seeing them with their eyes, by touching their lotus feet, by inquiring about their welfare, or by diligently worshiping them. Neophyte devotees or religionists cannot understand the importance of great Mahatmas. They go to the temple as a matter of formality and pay their respectful obeisances unto the deity. When one is promoted to the next platform of trance consciousness, one can understand the importance of the Mahatmas and the devotees. and in that stage, the devotee tries to please them. Therefore, Lord Krishna said that the neophyte cannot understand the importance of great sages, devotees, or ascetics. I don't know exactly where I've seen it, but I've seen it several times, that the deity is Krishna in the temple. That can't be minimized. He is an incarnation of Krishna, and specifically to help materialistic devotees, or kanistas, neophytes, who haven't experienced any of what Prabhupada calls here trance consciousness. So, to help along the way, the devotees, great devotees like Srila Prabhupada, they will install and open these temples where those who haven't had an experience of this other state of consciousness, this trance consciousness, can go and offer their respects to the deities and do some service, and it accumulates. And sometimes there are devotees there that are advanced, and if someone like that makes a connection with an advanced devotee, they can help them go to the next stage. But up until that point, they really can't appreciate advanced devotees very much. They can't tell who's who. They don't know who's who yet. Eat prasadam, chant and dance in front of the deity, Hare Krishna. Krishna helps in different ways. Krishna continued, one cannot purify himself by traveling to a holy place of pilgrimage and taking a bath there, or by seeing the deity in the temple. But if one happens to meet a great devotee, a Mahatma, who is a representative of the personality of Godhead, one becomes immediately purified. In order to become purified, there is the injunction to worship the fire, the sun, the moon, the earth, the water, the air, the sky, and the mind. By worshipping all the elements and the predominating deities, one can become free from the influence of envy, but all the sins of an envious person can be nullified immediately simply by serving a great soul. My dear revered sages and respectable kings, you can take it from me that a person who accepts this material body made of 3 elements, mucus, bile, and air, as his own self, who considers his family and relatives as his own, and who accepts material things as worshipable, or who visits holy places of pilgrimage just to take a bath there, but never associates with great personalities, sages, and Mahatmas, such a person, even in the form of a human being, is nothing but an animal, like an ass. When the Supreme Authority, Lord Krishna, was thus speaking with great gravity, all the sages and ascetics remained in dead silence. They became amazed upon hearing him speaking the absolute philosophy of life in such a concise way. Unless one is very much advanced in knowledge, one thinks his body to be his self, his family members to be his kith and kin, and the land of his birth to be worshipable. From this concept of life, and modern ideology of nationalism has sprung up. Lord Krishna condemned such ideas, and he also condemned persons who take the trouble to go to a holy place of pilgrimage just to take a bath and come back without taking the opportunity to associate with the great devotees and Mahatmas living there. Such persons are compared to the most foolish animal, the ass. All those who considered the speech of Lord Krishna for some time, and they concluded that Lord Krishna was actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, playing the role of an ordinary human who is forced to take a certain type of body as a result of the reactions of his past deeds. He was assuming this pastime as an ordinary human simply to teach the people in general how they should live for perfection of the human mission. Having concluded that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sages began to address him as thus. Dear Lord, we, the leaders of human society, are supposed to possess the proper philosophy of life, and yet we are becoming bewildered by the spell of your external energy. We are surprised to see your behavior, which is just like that of an ordinary human being, and which conceals your real identity as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we therefore consider your pastimes to be all wonderful. Our dear Lord, by your own energy you are creating, maintaining, and annihilating the whole cosmic manifestation of different names and forms. In the same way as the earth creates many forms of stone, trees, and other varieties of names and forms, and yet remains the same. Although you are creating varieties of manifestation through your energy, you are unaffected by all those actions. Our dear Lord, we remain simply stunned by seeing your wonderful actions. Although you are transcendental to this entire material creation, and as the Supersoul and the Supreme Lord, you nevertheless appear on this earth by your internal potency to protect your devotees and destroy the miscreants. Okay, Krishna appears by his internal potency. Krishna appears by his internal potency. So, his characteristics as the Purusha are not being displayed. He's appearing by his internal potency. He's appearing as an ordinary human being. You nevertheless appear on this earth by your internal potency to protect your devotees and destroy the miscreants. By such appearance, you reestablish the principles of eternal religion, which the human society forgets by long association with material energy. Our dear Lord, you are the creator of the social orders and spiritual statuses of the human society according to quality and worth. And when these orders are misguided by unscrupulous persons, you appear and set them right. Dear Lord, the Vedic knowledge is the representation of your pure heart. Austerities, study of the Vedas, and meditative trances lead to different realizations of yourself in your manifested and non-manifested aspects. The entire phenomenal world is a manifestation of your impersonal energy. But you yourself, as the original personality of Godhead, are non-manifested there. You are the Supreme Soul, the Supreme Brahman. Persons who are situated in Brahminical culture, therefore, can understand the truth about your transcendental form. Thus you always hold the Brahmins in respect, and thus you are considered to be the topmost of all followers of Brahminical culture. You are therefore known as Brahmanya Dev. Our dear Lord, you are the last word in good fortune and the last resort of all saintly persons. Therefore, we all consider that we have achieved the perfection of our life, education, austerity, and acquisition of transcendental knowledge by meeting you. Factually, you are the ultimate goal of all transcendental achievements. they go on for quite a while. This is what happens when devotee sees Krishna. They go on and on and on. It's like, wow. Hare Krishna. Our dear Lord, there is no end to your unlimited knowledge. Your form is transcendental, eternally existing in full bliss and knowledge. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Brahman, the Supreme Soul. Being covered by the spell of your internal potency, Yogamaya, you are now temporarily concealing your unlimited potencies. But still we can understand your exalted position, and therefore all of us offer you our respectful obeisances. Dear Lord, you are enjoying your pastimes in the role of a human being, concealing your real character of transcendental opulence. Therefore all the kings who are present here, even the members of the Yadu dynasty who are constantly mingling with you, eating with you, sitting with you, cannot understand that you are the original cause of all causes, the soul of everyone, the original cause of all creation. When a person dreams at night, hallucinatory figures created by the dream are accepted as real, and the imaginary dream body is accepted as one's real body. For the time being, one forgets that besides the body created in hallucination, there is another real body in his awakened state. Similarly, in the awakened state also, the bewildered conditioned soul considers sense enjoyment to be real happiness. So even when he's awake, he's really asleep. He's hallucinating. At night, it's clear it's an hallucination, and you wake up and but that's also a hallucination. The real waking up is to the spiritual form, the spiritual body. By the process of enjoyment of the senses of the material body, the spirit soul is covered and his consciousness becomes materially contaminated. It is due to material consciousness that one cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. All great mystic yogis endeavor to revive their Krishna consciousness by mature practice of the yoga system, and thus understand your lotus feet and meditate upon your transcendental form. In this way, the accumulated result of sinful activities is counteracted. It is said that the water of the Ganges can vanquish volumes of a person's sinful actions, but the Ganges water is glorious only due to your lotus feet. The Ganges water is flowing as perspiration from the lotus feet of your Lordship. And we are all so fortunate that today we have been able to directly see your lotus feet. Dear Lord, we are all surrendered souls, devotees of your Lordship. Therefore, please be kind and bestow your causeless mercy upon us. We know well that persons who have become liberated by constant engagement in your devotional service are no longer contaminated by the material modes of nature. Thus, they have become eligible to be promoted to the kingdom of God in the spiritual world. Jai Radhe. Jai Radhe. Hare Krishna. There's a little bit more, but I think I'm going to stop here. They've finished offering their prayers. And Narada Muni is going to speak up next. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. There's no way of getting around it. Devotional service, devotional service, devotional service. There's no other way, there's no other way, there's no other way. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There's no other way, there's no other way, there's no other way. Krishna,